Hey folks, Barry here. Now, I'm down at my summer place here in Cape May Courthouse, New Jersey, and it is cold and rainy, a little wet. The seagulls are still out though. They're like rats on wings, rats with wings. But anyway, there's not a lot to do down here at the shore on a rainy day. Could go to the movies, they're usually crowded. Not much else to do indoors. You could just go back to bed and just leave the day away, or you could play a board game. Now, today we are going to play Suburbia. Now, Suburbia is a game where you are going to try and outwit your competitor and have the most population at the end of the game by building your own little town, or borough as they call it. Yeah. So in the game you'll be buying and placing tiles on your little borough area, and these tiles will combo off each other, which will either give you money or they will increase your reputation, which will in the long run increase your population, or they'll just straight out give you population. You could also invest in certain tiles, which will double the effect of it, basically. And there's different types of tiles. You got residential, commercial, industrial, and then government buildings. And you could also build lakes, because everybody likes water. So, Jen will be joining me in this game because there's quite a bit of bookkeeping in the game, and it's a little bit for one person to do without making a ton of mistakes. Not that I don't make mistakes normally, but hopefully this will cut down on them. So, without further ado, let's build the town of tomorrow today in Suburbia. In the box you'll get the population board, 4 borough boards, 1 in each color, 4 reputation cubes, 1 in each color, 4 population squares, 1 in each color, 4 income cylinders, 1 in each color, 12 investment markers, 3 of each color, 4 double-sided player aid board, again 1 in each color, 20 double-sided gold tokens, 24 double-sided basic tiles, which consist of 8 heavy factory tiles, 8 community park tiles, and 8 suburbs tiles. The first player marker, 32 double-sided A tiles, 36 double-sided B tiles, 33 double-sided C tiles, which includes the one more round marker, the stacks board, the supply board, the real estate board, 66 $1 million coins, 48 $5 million coins, 12 $10 million coins, and the rule book. Now to set up Suburbia, first thing you want to do is give each player their borough boards. Then you want to set out the stack board, the realty market board, the supply board, and the population board. Then you want to give each player their 3 wooden markers, okay, the cylinder, the cube, and the square tile. There are 3 investment markers, $15 million in coin, their player aid boards, and 1 of each of the basic tiles, which consist of heavy factory, yellow, community park, gray, and suburbs, green. Next, place 4 of each type of basic tile in the appropriate spot on the realty market board. Put the remainder of the basic tiles back in the box. They will not be used for the game. Next, put the coins on the supply board. Now they do not all fit, so some of them will be off camera, held off to the side. Next, we're going to take our gold tokens here, and we're going to take one for each number of players and place that face up in the designated area on the realty market board. Okay, in this case we only have 2 players, so I'll have one here and here. 3 players would place one here, 4 players would place one here. Then we're going to take 2 gold tokens for each player and place them face down near their burrow boards. We will place the remainder of gold tokens back in the box. They will not be used for the game. Next, we will take our A, B, and C tiles and place them face down and give them a shuffle. Now, be aware that each set of the A, B, and C tiles comes with one of these blank hexes. You will remove them from the game. They will never be used. They're just there in case one of your tiles gets damaged. After you have given each separate group a shuffle, you will take a number of tiles out depending on the number of players. Okay, now in a 2-player game it'll be 15, in a 3-player game it'll be 18, and in a 4-player game it'll be 21 tiles. Now, if you forget, there's always a little reminder here on the stack board. Now, once you have drawn the appropriate number of A, B, and C tiles, you will then draw 4 additional C tiles and keep them in a separate pile. Now, once you have drawn the appropriate A, B, and C stack tiles, and then the additional 4 C stack tiles, you'll take all remaining tiles and place them back in the box. They will not be used for the game. Next, we're going to take the A and B stacks and place them in the appropriate spot on the stack board. Then we're going to take those 4 additional C tiles that we took out of the pile and we're going to place it on the appropriate spot on the board. Next, out of the first stack of C tiles that we took, we're going to draw out a certain number of tiles depending on the player count. Okay, for a 2-player game it's 6 tiles, for a 3-player game it's 9 tiles, and for a 4-player game it is 12 tiles. Next, we're going to take this one more round tile and we are going to shuffle it into those tiles that we just took out of the initial stack. We will then take that stack with the one more round tile in it and place it on top of the other 4 tiles that we initially laid on the stack board. Then we will take the remaining C tiles and place it on top of all of those tiles. Okay, next, take 7 tiles from the A stack here and place them face up, one in each slot on the bottom of the realty market. Next, each player will take their square population tile and place it here on 2 on their population board. Next, players will decide which way they want their burrow board to face. Okay, it's a double-sided board, so it could face where you're building your burrow up, or you could flip it around and have your burrow coming towards you. Okay, now regardless of which way you decide to arrange your board, you would then place your basic tiles in this specific order. Suburbs would always touch the burrow board in the center hex spot here. Then you would have community park followed by heavy factory. Okay, so regardless of which way this board faces, the order of these 3 basic tiles is suburbs, community park, heavy factory. Okay, and it's always in the center hex slot here. Next, each player will take their wooden cylinder here and place it on 0 on the income track here. Then each player will take their wooden cube and place it on 1 on the reputation track here. Next, place any unused burrow boards, player aid boards, and player pieces to the board. They will not be used for the game. Now, the final step for setup of Suburbia is to choose the first player and give them the first player marker, and you are now ready to play Suburbia. Okay folks, here we go with Suburbia. Now, the object of Suburbia is to have the most population at the end of the game. Now, the end of the game is triggered by the one more round token, which is somewhere here towards the bottom of the C stack. Now in Suburbia, we will be building different types of structures in order to grow our town to acquire more population. Now there's 4 different types of tiles. We have residential tiles, the green ones, government tiles, the gray ones, industrial tiles, the yellow ones, and also commercial tiles, these blue ones here. Now, in the beginning of the game, each player will have 2 hidden gold tokens here, and they must choose one of these 2 tokens and then discard the other token. It'll go back in the box and will not be used for the rest of the game. Along with their secret goals, there are also a number of open goals depending on the amount of players. A player will gain a number of population points depending on what the goal is. Some are the fewest, some are the most, some are the most contiguous. Stuff like that. Before we get into a round, let me explain how the tiles work and how the initial setup affects your borough. At the top of the tile, we have a white ribbon with the name of the tile on it. Now below that, we have some artwork of what the tile represents. Now, as we see here on the heavy factory, there is a set of different symbols. On the left side, we have the price of the tile, along with a symbol which represents what type of tile it is. In the case of the heavy factory here, we have what looks like a factory. Now on the right side of the tile, we have a symbol. Okay, now depending on what the tile is, there could be one of 3 different types of symbols or no symbol at all. Okay, now these symbols are an immediate effect. When you place the tile, you will do whatever that symbol tells you to right away. Now the 3 different types of symbols are income, which is the circle. Then we have reputation, which is the black square. And the final type of symbol is population, which is the meeple symbol. Now in these symbols, there will be numbers. Okay. Now if the number is positive, there will be a black border around the symbol. And you will add that number of whatever the symbol represents to the corresponding tracks, whether it be income, reputation, or population. If the symbol has a negative number, there will be a red border around the symbol, and you would subtract whatever that number is from the corresponding tracks. Now below that, there is another white ribbon which has the conditional effect for that tile. Okay, now in that conditional effect, there will be a set of symbols and wording, and you should pay attention to what the wording is. Now there's a couple different types of conditional effects that can happen. There is no conditional effect, as in the case of the suburbs here. And then there are conditional effects that will impact tiles adjacent to the tile you had placed, like the community park. It says for each adjacent. There are conditional effects that will take effect on any of the tiles that are in your borough. There are conditional effects that will impact tiles in either your borough or your opponent's boroughs. Then there are conditional effects that will only impact your opponent's boroughs. We'll get into a demonstration of how they work in a few minutes, but first I want to show you how the initial setup affects your borough and your population. Now if we look at the suburb tile here, the immediate effect is +2 population. So we start off at +2 on the population track. Now if we look at the community park here, we would get -1 income as the immediate effect. So we would move our income track back 1. Now if we look at the conditional effect here, it is +1 reputation for each adjacent industrial, residential, or commercial tile next to it. Okay, so if we look here, we have a suburb, which is a residential tile, and a heavy factory, which is a residential tile. So if we had started at 0, we would move our reputation token up 2 spaces. +1 reputation for the suburb, and then +1 reputation for the heavy factory. Now, if we look at the heavy factory, the immediate effect is +1 income, which would bring us back to 0. Okay, and then the conditional effect for that is -1 reputation for each government and residential building adjacent to that tile. The community park is a government tile and it is adjacent to the heavy factory, so we would subtract 1 point of reputation. So that's why we start off at 0 income, 1 reputation, and 2 population. Okay, now I started the game along a little bit just so I could give you some examples of how the game is played. Okay, each player's turn will be broken up into 4 phases. The first phase is to take and place one tile, or to place one investment marker on a tile in their borough. The next phase is to pay or collect money according to their income track here. The third step is to adjust your population according to your reputation track here. And the final step is to add a new tile to the real estate market here. Okay. Now for the first step, you can invest in your market, which we'll get into in a minute, or you can buy a tile and place it in your borough. Now there's 3 different ways you can buy a tile. Now the first way to buy a tile is from the real estate market here. Okay. To do this, you would pay the price on the left of the tile plus any modifier due to the real estate market. So if we were to buy the municipal airport here, we would pay $6 plus the real estate market, which is 0. So we would pay a total of $6. Okay. However, if we bought the freeway here, we would pay $5 for the tile plus an additional $8 due to the market for a total of $13. The second way you can buy a tile is to buy a lake. Okay. Now lakes are bought from the real estate market here, but instead of paying the price of the tile plus the modifier due to the market, you simply choose a tile on the market, flip it over, and then pay the price of the real estate market. Okay, so if I were to buy this tile here to turn into a lake, it would cost me 0 due to the real estate market. But if I were to buy this tile to turn into a lake, it would cost me $10. Now the final way you can buy a tile is to buy one of these basic tiles. To do that, you would simply pay the price of the tile. Again, that's indicated on the left of the tile. So if I were to buy this community park here, it would cost me $4. Okay, so for the municipal airport here, the player would pay $6 plus 0 for the real estate market. Okay. You would then take the tile, pay for the tile, placing any money in the supply to pay for it, and then taking the change from the supply. And then you can place the tile. Now there's only one rule on placement of the tiles. Okay, they must be adjacent to another tile in your borough. Okay, so I could place this here, or I could place it over here if I wanted to. I could even place it down here. Okay, I cannot, however, place it off on its own, either touching the borough board like that or just out in the middle of nowhere. Okay, they must be adjacent to another tile. So I'm going to place the municipal airport here. Now I want to be careful where I place the municipal airport due to the effects of the adjacent tiles. Okay, and we'll get into how that works in a little bit. But for now, I'm just going to place this tile here. Okay. Okay, so now we check the conditional effects. Okay, now as we can see here, there are 2 conditional effects. When we check conditional effects, we're going to go in a specific order. First, we're going to check each adjacent tile. Okay, so for the municipal airport here, we get -1 reputation for each adjacent residential tile to it. Now, as you can see, we have a commercial and industrial tile adjacent to it. We don't have to worry about the conditional effect for that. Okay. Next, you would check the adjacent tiles to see what their conditional effect is and if it impacts the tile you just placed. Okay. If we look at the office building here, we get +1 income for each commercial building that is adjacent to it. The municipal airport is an industrial tile. We don't have to worry about that. Okay. Now, if we look over here at the heavy factory, we get -1 reputation for each adjacent government or residential tile. But again, it is not either of those, so we don't have to worry about that. Next, you would look for non-adjacent tile effects. Okay. Now, the municipal airport doesn't have one of these. But say instead we placed this business supply store. Okay, and we placed it down here. Alright. Now the business supply store says you would get +1 income for every office tile. Okay, and the office tiles have this briefcase symbol on it. Okay, now if we look at our borough, we would have 2 tiles with that briefcase symbol on it that is not adjacent to the office supply store. So we would take that into effect. Okay, so if we had played the business supply store, we would get 2 points of income because of the conditional effect. Next, you would check your opponent's boroughs to see if any of their tiles would affect the tile that you just had placed. Okay, so we're going to go back to the municipal airport here. Okay, and that will say you would get +1 income for every airport, which is the airplane symbol on it. Okay, now we'll move this back to cancel the effect of that. But we have a municipal airport which has the airport symbol on it. We get 1 point of income for that. Then if we come over here to the black players borough here, they have an airport which has that airport symbol on it. Okay, so we would move 1 more point up the income track. Then the final thing you have to check for is to see if the tile you have laid in your borough would affect your opponent's borough. Okay, so again, the black player here has that same municipal airport tile that we laid, so they would get +1 for the airport the yellow player laid. Now, instead of buying a tile, you can invest in a tile. Okay, to do this, you would simply check the price on the tile and pay that amount. Okay, so say I want to invest in the community park here, I would pay $4 to the supply, and then I would take the investment marker and place it over top of the price of the tile. Now, whenever you invest in a tile, the effects of the tile you invested in are now doubled. Okay, so in the case of the community park, for each adjacent industrial, residential, and commercial tile that is laid adjacent to it now, you would get +2 reputation points instead of just +1 reputation point. Now, once you have bought and placed a tile or invested in a tile, you would then go to step 2, which is to collect or pay your income. Now, to do this, you simply check your income track here, and you would take whatever the number that your token is on from the supply. So in this case, I would get $6. I would take $6 from the supply, and then we would add it to our money pool here. Okay. Now, if say you are in the negative, you would then have to pay the supply that amount of money. Okay, so if you are to the left of the 0, you would have to pay that amount of money. So in this case, I would have to pay the supply $1. Next, we would go to adjust population based on your reputation. Okay, that works the same as the income, but instead of collecting or paying money, you would adjust your population depending on what your reputation is. So in this case, I have 2 reputation. I would move my reputation marker 2 spots up the track. Again, if I were in the negative, I would move back for each point of reputation in the negative. Now notice, I crossed this red line here. What that means is I would lose 1 point of reputation and 1 point of income. Okay. Now, once you have adjusted these tracks, you will not go back and adjust your population until your next turn. Now, notice that your income and reputation can only go up to 15 or back to -5. Once you have maxed out, you cannot go any further. Now, the final step is to add a new tile to the real estate market. Now, depending on how you have bought a tile will depend on how you adjust the real estate market here. Okay, now, if you had bought a tile and turned it into a lake, or bought a tile from the real estate market, you would simply slide the remaining tiles down to fill in any gaps and replenish the last tile, last slot on the left here, the $10 slot, with a tile from one of the stacks. Okay, you would first go to the A stack. If that's depleted, you would move on to the B stack. If that's depleted, you would move on to the C stack. If you had invested in a tile or bought one of the basic tiles, you would then choose one of these tiles on the real estate market and discard it from the game. Okay, and you would pay the appropriate price on the real estate track that you discarded that tile from. Okay, once you have done that, you would then slide the tiles down to fill in the gap and replenish it with a tile from one of the 3 stacks. Then it's the player on the left's turn. Now players will continue to take their turns until a player goes to fill a missing tile in the real estate market and they draw the one more round tile. When this happens, you will discard the one more round tile from the game and replenish the empty slot on the market with another tile from the C stack. Okay, now each player will get one more complete round to play. So if anybody before the first player draws the one more round tile, everybody else will get to complete that round, and then everybody will get one full round to take their turns. Now once this is done, players will add any population to the gold tokens, whether it be the open gold tokens or their secret gold tokens. Okay, now with the case of the gold tokens, if there is a tie, nobody will get the benefit from the gold token. So say the black player here got the most contiguous government buildings, he would get 15 points. So we would move him up 15 points on the population track. Okay, so he would go from 85 all the way up to 100. Now when you're doing the final score, you ignore the effects of these red lines. The player with the most population wins. If there's a tie, the player with the most reputation wins. If there's still a tie, the player with the most income wins. If there is still a tie, the player with the most money wins. And then if there is still a tie, you just have to play another game of Suburbia to see who wins. It's that simple. And that is how you play Suburbia.